It is 11 bells. It is Friday, the 27th of March, and I'd like to welcome you all to Coffee at 11, Coffee with Colm, with a very special guest this morning, Barbara Moynihan, with your mug. Say hi, Barbara, with your mug.
Hi with my mug. My mug is big. It's not that I've got a small head. Just so you know.
Small, far away comes to mind. Anyway, it's wonderful to have you on, Barbara. Let me just introduce to our viewers and our listeners briefly. I've taken the liberty, Barbara, of putting your social media contacts into the chat box so people can connect with you there. So Barbara Moynihan is founder and managing director of a business called On Your Feet. She says, we help business people to present with impact in any situation, from a virtual meeting to face-to-face meeting to speaking at a small group or large conference. That's a skill set that we all need today, Barbara. How long established? Since 2010, and apparently you were 10 years old in 2010. Well done. How many employees? 5 on the team. Love that. Barbara's founder and MD of On Your Feet, the presentations training company. She started life in finance. After 8 years there, she quit her job, went to a kibbutz, and spent the next year working her way around Europe. Love your style. On her return, she continued to work in finance, then became a Microsoft certified IT trainer. However, it wasn't until she started training in presentations and leadership skills over 20 years ago that she found her true passion. Barbara has 2 dogs, 2 daughters, and 1 husband. And in her spare time, she enjoys cycling, Pilates, and playing her ukulele. Might get a rendition later. And something nobody knows about you, Barbara. I once drove a tourist bus with 70 passengers in the Sinai Desert. There's a first column, a coffee at 11. Barbara Moynihan, great pleasure having you on here this morning. And it's now over to you for the next few minutes. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, if I may, on behalf of our audience.
Yep.
Assembled good and great. And the first question, Barbara, is who is Barbara Moynihan outside of On Your Feet?
Well, Barbara Moynihan started life as Barbara McMahon. I was born many, many years ago to a family of 7. So I have 3 older siblings, 3 younger siblings, 3 brothers, 3 sisters. So I am the middle child, which means obviously that I'm perfect in every way. Not. So born in Monkstown, went to school in the Loretta School down the road, left school. I didn't go to college. I chose my career in finance very carefully. I chose it because on the way home on the bus, I could see the people from Allied Irish Banks coming out of work at the same time that I was leaving school, and I thought, that's the job for me. So joined the bank, stayed there for 8 years, as you mentioned earlier, but probably within 8 days I knew I was in the wrong career, but I stayed because I loved the people, I loved the crack, I loved the variety, but I just knew it wasn't my lifetime job. So after 8 years, as you said, I left, went off with my sister traveling. We went to a kibbutz in Israel, went from there to Greece picking grapes, to France picking grapes, worked where else, in a ski resort. So an absolutely fantastic time for a year. Came back to Ireland, back into finance. A couple of years later, went to Australia with my now husband, spent a year over there, and came back to Ireland then. And long story short, I ended up becoming a Microsoft certified trainer. And I found that I just absolutely loved training people. So that's just a whistle stop of a bit about me. Probably, is that enough for you, Colm, or do you want more?
No, that's a wonderful whistle stop. I'm somewhat envious. Two things jumped out of that. I made a few notes here. One is you made your career decision based on seeing people coming out of offices at the same time you left school. I wanted to be a school teacher for exactly the same reason, short hours, holidays. The one part of your life that I didn't manage to do was travel the world and do a kibbutz and pick grapes, so a little bit envious, but hey, there's time yet, Barbara. One thing before we go into On Your Feet, one thing I forgot to mention is that you're in fact President of Ireland.
Well,
I forgot to mention that, and I'm terribly sorry, President. So would you like to explain that? How are you President of Ireland?
Yeah, so I like to say that too. I'm President of Ireland of the Professional Speaking Association. My correct title is I am the Regional President for Ireland of the Professional Speaking Association, UK and Ireland. So for those who don't know, the Professional Speaking Organisation is for people, we're primarily made up of trainers, speakers, coaches, people who make their livelihood out of speaking. Or alternatively, some people who maybe have another type of career, and they are in the world of speaking. So they do motivation speaking, a bit like yourself, Colm, speak at conferences. And the sole aim is to help people speak more and speak better.
Well, it's a great organization. That's folks. I met Barbara several years ago, and I've been very impressed with the woman and her business and her leadership over the last number of years. So thank you for that, Barbara, Madam President. I'd forgotten about that at the very start. So thank you for that. That brings us right up to speed. Now, if I may, and the whole idea of this Coffee at 11 series is to bring real people with real stories, with real businesses around the table so others can have a listen and see what it says to them. And so for now, next couple of minutes, would you oblige and talk to us about, so you brought us up to where you decided training was your thing, then you started On Your Feet. So take us through the On Your Feet journey right up until a couple of weeks ago when the world shifted, please.
Yeah, so prior to being in On Your Feet, I'd worked for 9 years in an international training organisation called Dale Carnegie Training. And a little bit like now, but not nearly as serious. When the crash came in 2009, there was no work for me. So they said, look, I was an associate trainer. An associate trainer means that they just paid me for the days that they used me to deliver training. So at the end of 2009, there was like the world was on its knees. There was no training going on. So January 2010, I sat down at my kitchen table and I thought, okay, I've two choices. I either quit working, which wasn't really an option for many reasons, and primarily because I love working, I love being with people, I love helping people. So the only thing then was that I could so either quit or make a job for myself. So that's when I set up On Your Feet. So for the first couple of years, I called myself an enforced entrepreneur. I didn't really want to have my own business, going out looking for clients, having a website, all the selling, the building the business. It wasn't something that appealed to me, but I knew I had to do it. So because my background was in leadership and presentation skills, I ultimately wanted to be in the presentation skills area with corporates, which is where I come from. But corporates weren't spending any money back then. And while there was no market for it. So I thought, well, what do people really need right now? At that time, in 2000, a lot of people were setting up their own business, a bit like me. They had been let go. There were a lot of new entrepreneurs. And there was I was doing a lot of networking. And I noticed that I might be chatting to somebody, for example, like yourself, Colm, over coffee at the beginning of the networking event. And then they do the round the table thing where everybody would stand and give their 60 seconds. And I noticed when people stood up to do their 60 seconds, they just became, they couldn't articulate it. So I upskilled myself on the elevator pitch. I became a bit of a wizard on it. And I started running programs to help people with their elevator pitch. And any networking event I went to, people say, oh my God, it's great. I'd love that. But the problem was the entrepreneurs, startups, they didn't have the budgets. So I eventually got work through Enterprise Ireland funded programs delivering the elevator pitch. So that's where I got started, built the business. First couple of years, like really tough. I networked like a nutter. I would be a huge advocate of networking online and offline. I used to network 3 times a week. And that's how I got my business, got my name out there. People knew me then. So fast forward to probably 2014, the business started to really take off. I got my first few corporates in the first year and it built and built. So then I expanded. I remember winning an award with Network Dublin. So Network Ireland is a women's networking organisation. They have, I'd say, at this stage, about 13 branches, so Cork, Galway, Dublin. I won the Network Dublin Businesswoman of the Year award, which is fantastic, which meant I went forward to the Ireland final. And I'll never forget, part of the process was an interview. And I was asked, so what are you going to do to grow the business? And I was working flat out, practically 6 days a week. And I was thinking, there is no way to grow this business. I've no more hours. So what I did then was I took on a couple of associates and the business built from there. So that's where we are now. There are 5 of us in the organisation, 2 associates who, like I mentioned with myself back with Dale Carnegie, I pay them on an as needs basis. And then I have Sharon, who I have to give a shout out to, who is my operations person in the background, who is the brains behind this. Yeah, she's brilliant. And Debbie then, who does all the collecting of the money, which is a very important part. I think it's very difficult to run your own business and be the person chasing people for money at the same time. So up until a few weeks ago, this year we had a slow start. January and February were quite quiet, which is unusual. But there was a lot of inquiries and we were chock-a-block. Now I mean chock-a-block for April and May. So literally the first week, so it would have been last week, is it? I'm getting all my weeks. Yeah, it's only last week, is it? Last week was Paddy's week, wasn't it? Or was that the week before? The week before. Okay, anyway, the first week when it all happened, it was a bit, every email was, need to postpone, need to postpone, need to postpone. Monday of this week, in my inbox from 3 different clients, I had emails saying, what can you deliver virtually for us? Which was great. So this week now I've been busy taking what I do face-to-face, tailoring it for delivering it online. So I have a couple of bookings now with clients over the next couple of weeks in delivering what I would have always thought you could only do face-to-face. But when you actually sit down and think about it, especially with Zoom, which we're using now, which is brilliant. You've got the breakout rooms, you've got the chat. So I'm running my first beta program on Tuesday morning to see how that will all go. Yeah, because no doubt.
Fantastic.
There'll be hitches and glitches, but so it's given me the impetus to start doing more work online, which I should have been doing for years, Colm, to be honest with you.
Shouldn't we all? Barbara, thank you for that. That's a very comprehensive update. Thank you for that. A couple of things that jumped out at me. You said back when you were starting out, you did this networking thing in the 60-second slot, and you asked a very pertinent question. What do people really need right now? What do people really need right now? I think that's a perfect question for the times we're in today. Everybody on this call should be asking themselves, what do the people really need right now? And then see, can we hone our skill set to match that? You said you're a huge advocate of networking 2 and 3 times a week. Was that in sort of traditional network type groups, organized networking?
Yes. So in the beginning, I mean, anybody who sets up their business initially, you generally have very few, if any, clients and lots of time. So I use that time by networking. So I was in a couple of the different chamber groups. I was in a couple of women's networking groups. I'm based here near Dunleary now. There used to be a group of local businesses down there that used to meet, but like literally 3 times a week, every week for 18 months. In hindsight, looking back, a lot of the time I was fishing in the wrong pond. So now I am part of several networking groups. I've cut it way back. So I'd probably be in 3 or 4 now and would network once. It could be twice a month. Some months it could be 3 times a month. Sometimes it could be once a week. It varies a bit, but I would still definitely do the face-to-face networking as well as all the social media networking as well.
Yeah, but I do think it's a hugely important part. I love the way you say that. When you start your business, you've got no clients but loads of time. And the right thing to do with that is get out and meet people, because the only way you're going to get clients is to meet people. And so you throw yourself into whatever ponds are there until you find out that you're fishing the wrong ponds. But at least you've broken the ice and you've gotten used to it and you've learned stuff and you've learned that you're in the wrong pond. And then you can jump to the right pond. So happy days. Thanks for that. So that brings us up to, as you say, a couple of weeks ago, and then literally the world fell off a cliff. And I was, you said it just a moment ago that your inbox was, can we postpone, can we postpone, can we postpone, can we postpone? And I'm quite sure that was heart-wrenching for you. And of course, the people who work with you and your associates. But everybody at the moment is in the same boat. So it's a really strange and interesting time. We've got loads of time, all of us. So just we'll expand a little more on what you said you're now doing. This last couple of days, you've got people saying, well, what can you do virtually? And that's got you thinking. The light bulb has come on. So tell me about how you're going to cope with this time.
Yeah, so even before the clients had started to ask, like last week we had a Zoom call, myself and my other 2 facilitators, and I was saying, look, you know, and it was funny because even this year I was saying, we would tend to do a lot of our meetings face to face. And I was, in January I said, we need to be using Zoom more. All our clients are using Zoom or Skype or Blue Jeans or Teams. We should be practicing, you know, having our own meetings in that way. So we had a Zoom meeting the first week and I said, look, we need to start looking at doing things virtually. And probably the easiest place to start is doing things one-to-one, because we had done a small amount of that before, not a massive amount. So what we did then, because part of the thing is that all of us as facilitators, like when we deliver a program, we all have we have a certain methodology we use in On Your Feet, and all of us, even though we put our own personalities on whenever we do something, it's very consistent. So with that in mind, what I did was just Monday of this week, I got somebody to volunteer to be coached via via Zoom by me. I recorded the session, and I'm now using that as a trainer for my facilitators, because we all need to be able to deliver virtually. So that's what I've done for the team, and kept in touch with them as well. The other thing that I've done is even though clients have been asking me, what can you do virtually? Even last week, I was already thinking, people who normally, so for example, upstairs here today now, my daughter, who's based in London, is working from home. And she heard through the grapevine, one of her colleagues, our colleague's manager said, I'm worried about Katie now working from home. She's really sociable and bubbly, and how would she cope? And she's finding her own way to cope. But even with that in mind, people who are used to being in the office, who are now working alone, who might be having one meeting a day, are probably feeling a bit isolated. So what I've done now for my clients is I have, again, working on tailoring. We have lunch and learn sessions. How can we deliver them in 30-minute bites to our clients, to their teams, of up to probably, I think more than 30. Like, I've been on Zoom calls with up to 60 people. I think that's just too many. I think 30 is really the tops that you can do. So offering these to my clients at an attractive rate, so that I'm keeping in touch with them, and their teams are getting to have something of benefit that's a bit of fun, interactive, because again, we break them into the breakout rooms and make it participative, but with solid learnings. So that's something else, just bite-sized bits as well.
It's fantastic. You're pivoting at a rate of knots, and I heard you say it earlier, and we've all got some regrets that we didn't do this a little sooner. Okay, so you brought us through the early life, the travel, etc. You brought us through the corporate career, which just wasn't you. You brought us through On Your Feet in the early beginnings, and then it grew into something. Love the fact that you felt you couldn't grow, and then the light bulb moment was you used associates. Love the fact, by the way, because I'm a huge believer in brands and systems and people. They're the three components we need to build a business. So if we go beyond Barbara or Colm, we've got to develop our IP and our methodology, and then train others to deliver that, and allow them the latitude, as you say, to put their own personality on it. So you've done all that, and that's working really well. The lunch and learns, I really like that idea. There's something in that for sure. And the world fell off a cliff for all of us last week or 2 weeks ago, and we're now relearning new skill sets, or not relearning, learning new skill sets that we can adapt. So that brings us to a whole brave new world in a few weeks or a few months' time, when the veil lifts. What do you believe is going to happen for On Your Feet and Barbara Moynihan and your team?
I believe, and it's not just for me, I think anybody else who's in our education, training, coaching, speaking business, much more of it is going to be done virtually. The feeling that I'm getting, so for example, this time last week, I was on a call with Professional Speaking Association members from the UK and Ireland, and there were so many of them saying, there was kind of two camps actually. There was kind of people who are saying, I don't know what I can do here, and others saying, this is what I'm doing, and I'm astounded at how effective it is virtually. I mean, when I did the coaching session with that unnamed person on Monday, like after about 10 minutes, it didn't feel like I wasn't like that. I wasn't even, that we weren't in the room together. It's amazing. Other people, I mean, I think I even heard you saying yourself that you were traveling for, what was it, an hour to a meeting for an hour? We don't need to do that anymore.
Oftentimes I was driving 3 hours for a 1 hour meeting to drive 3 hours back. I hate driving. I always have. This is a revelation.
Yeah.
Done the last couple of weeks. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, don't be sorry. So I think a lot more will be done virtually, for sure. A lot of our clients, we would work a lot with big corporates. So LinkedIn would be huge clients of ours, and like they do so much remotely already. Like, it's going to be easy peasy to transition for certain parts. For the presentation skills where we video and give them one-to-one feedback, I think that will always be in the room, but there's certainly a certain amount that there's a lot that can be done online for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to make us more productive. Very interestingly, I'm a dinosaur when it comes to this stuff. Like, you know, I won't give you my age, but I'm heading towards 60. I'm loving it, by the way. And anyway, but I'm a dinosaur when it comes to this type of stuff. But I've embraced it absolutely. And but my son also works in London, like your daughter Katie does. And sure, that generation, Barbara, the people that are coming up that are going to be clients of yours and mine for the decades to come, this is their world. And we've got to step into their world rather than saying, oh, no, you got to come into ours. So I think it's huge.
For sure.
It's wonderful stuff. Wonderful. Mm-hmm. Barbara, lovely chatting to you. We're going to go to the floor in a moment for questions and answers. But before we do, have you got one tip that you could leave us with that would, what would you say to somebody who's going through this time, who's a little bit scared of what's going on at the moment, who hasn't quite figured out, as you have, what it looks like when the veil lifts? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think the key thing in all of this is, you know, if your head's right, everything else is a little bit easier. So I just think be kind to yourself, be kind to others, do something every day that makes you feel good. It might be something as simple as, actually, and I don't normally have this on my desk. Actually, this isn't my normal desk, as you can guess. I've lit flowers, and just every time I look at my flowers, I feel good. I've been swimming in the sea every day, bar one, and that just gives me a buzz. For somebody else, it might be just looking at a cat video, you know, looking at some comedy of Foil, Arms and Hog. Do you know them, Colm? They're hilarious. They've a new video out. If anybody hasn't seen it, Foil, Arms and Hog, I'll probably share it on social media in the next couple of days. But just something that just makes you feel good. So be kind to yourself and obviously spread that kindness around.
Beautiful, beautiful, Barbara. Thank you very much. So we're not letting you go, but let me thank you for coming on as my guest here this morning to Coffee at 11. I'm going to open it up to the floor to see who's got a question for you. Let me just change the view so I don't miss anybody. Anybody got a question out there who would like to wave at the camera? And then I'll unmute you. Tim Kelly, just 2 seconds, young man. Tim Kelly, you're live. Meet Barbara. Barbara, meet Tim.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Tim. Hi, how are you?
Hi. Thanks. It's been an excellent session this morning. Really appreciate everything. Just two things. I had a friend who decided to move his business to completely virtual about 18 months, 2 years ago. He does no face-to-face meetings whatsoever, and it's revolutionized his business. He can do so much more with so much less resources, and he wouldn't go backwards. So his life hasn't been changed. And luckily, I've been working remotely for 12 months, so my life hasn't been changed by what's been going on. You mentioned about communicating with your team, and I think a lot of business owners out there at the moment we may struggle to keep in touch with people they would have seen around the office every day or would have been in contact just by nature of businesses every day. But these people are now disparate, they're away from each other, and they don't know when they'll be working together again. I was wondering if you had any advice for a business owner about keeping in contact with your team, even if they're not working, if they're at home and they can't help or whatever, but keeping that sense that we're all still part of a team, even if the business isn't running or if we don't see each other every day.
Yeah. So, for example, my husband is in the room behind me, also working from home. And with his company, they have a Teams call every morning at 8 o'clock and another one then at 4 o'clock. So it just gives a little bit of structure to the day that they know that they're going to see each other. So I don't know if you have been using Zoom prior to this, but definitely Zoom seems to be the way. It's great to kind of get people together, and even just a phone call. But I think having something regular in the diary every day. Actually, my daughter Katie again, 9 o'clock every day, and I don't know if it's her boss just making sure that she's logged on, but she's very, what's the word? She kind of astounds me. She's so got a good business ethic about her. But 9 o'clock every morning they have a meeting, and I hear she's on calls all the time up there. Actually, I went into the room to get something the other day. It was a bit like, I don't know if you ever saw that video of the guy on BBC years ago. Yeah, you've seen it, it's going around again. But I was trying to get my laptop on, so I was kind of creeping in the background, you know, and I was going like this, and she goes, I'm sorry, that's my mother. And I could hear her boss, oh, that's so funny. You know, having a little, that was meant to be an English accent, by the way. But yeah, so she's on the video calls all the time. So I'd say, to be honest with you, Tim, video calls, and if that doesn't work, even phone calls.
Great.
Thank you.
Question, Tim. Thank you very much indeed. A fabulous answer. Barbara. Who's next who'd like to ask Barbara a question? I say this every day. Ian Hannon. Ian, meet Barbara. Barbara, meet Ian.
Barbara, hello again. First of all, I just want to check you can hear me okay, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I have two, but I'll try and squeeze two in if I can. I hope that's okay. I got away with it yesterday. I might get away with it today. The first question, Barbara, is you've kind of answered this to some extent anyway. I'm really interested to figure out what were either the biggest differences or the biggest challenges going from being in the room to going virtual. The biggest challenges, let's say, because when you're in a room, you get people in huddles, you get people up at a flip chart, someone's grabbing a marker, that type bit of brainstorming and so on. What did you find were the biggest challenges, and maybe how did you get over them?
Okay, so just to clarify, up until this week, I have only ever done coaching one-to-one online. So I've not yet done a group. My first group, my beta group, will be this coming Tuesday morning.
Okay.
I might be able to tell you next week in more detail.
Right.
But even from the point of view of planning the session, I looked at, so for example, one of the very first things that we do on an actual program is we flip charts around the room, different questions, break people into groups. They answer the questions, they go from one flip chart to another, adding to each other's information. We call it flip chart rotation. So I think, how can I do that now without them being in the room? So breakout rooms, put them into breakout rooms, and then they come back and then feed back their answers.
Okay.
I have another exercise where I get somebody to read out something and then check how many words per minute that they've read it out as a speed test. And then I get them to do it a second time with a bit more markings and that. And I had to think, how will I get them to do that? And I've devised a way where they each do it individually, and I'll be able to see who's finished first, literally just by waving their hand. I'll see how long it took them and work it out. So it's thinking outside the box. How can I work with what I do in the room, and how can I make it more interesting? For example, one of the other things, actually, and I don't have it here, normally in a group training program, I have a suitcase because I have various props that I bring in. And one of the props is a beach ball. So I will have the beach ball here next week, and I will take it out at one stage, and I'll probably ruin the surprise for some of my test people coming, but you'll just be like, what's she doing with the beach ball? But I'll still make the same point.
Yeah.
On our programs, we get people to stand up. So in the documentation we've sent out to them, we've said, make sure you're in a situation where you can stand up during the thing. And also told them to be conscious that it's not just going to be their top half, because we don't want them standing up and find out they're in their pajamas or whatever. So to answer your question, Ian, so far, it's in the planning stage. I'll know better next week, but it's looking at what you do in the room and how can I be creative in ways of doing that outside the room and keeping it interactive, because it's going to be a 3-hour session on Tuesday, and if people are just sitting down for 3 hours, it's going to be Snoresville.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. Maybe we'll catch up in a few weeks and see how you're getting on with that. Yeah.
Have a virtual coffee. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Connect me via Colm, and we'll meet again virtually.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I said I have two questions. If I can just throw out the second question, if that's okay. When you were transitioning from being by yourself to having other associate trainers, how did you find that? Because I think the issue for a lot of people is, can I find people, and this is a very egotistical thing for me to say, can I find people who are as good as me type of thing. A bit nervous finding other people to, here's my baby, go and deliver our programs,
Oh, absolutely, 100%, because I think it is true when we all think, look, nobody else could do it like me. That was, and you're absolutely right when you say that. So at the time when I was making the transition, I had been working with a business coach called Jeanette Nocton. And she would have had a much broader background than me in terms of HR things. So she helped me to draw up a profile for what you need for the person, a job description. So, and she helped me to recruit through LinkedIn, and that's actually where I got 2 associates at the time. One of them who I knew already, and I had my eye on her. She was in a permanent job, and she told me then she was cutting back and looking to have a portfolio career. So I nabbed her. And then the other person I got through LinkedIn, again with the help of Jeanette to do that. But it was just a realization that nobody else is exactly you, but you can train people on your methodology.
Yeah.
So it does take a good while. And funny, I started that process in February 2015. And I remember the very first day that somebody delivered a program while I was on holidays. In other words, I had a business now, not a job. I was making money. I was walking in the Camino in Spain, and one of my associates was delivering a program. And I was just thinking, this is great. I'm away and the business is ticking over. But it does take a lot of work, and you do need to do a lot of systemizing and documenting and training and giving them hands-on training, and then training the two of you doing dual-handed training, and then just hand-holding and making sure that they're doing things and upskilling. So we would sit in on each other's programs once a year, right, and give each other feedback, right, just in terms, and even for myself, because sometimes I can, it's kind of embarrassing when one of my facilitators was sitting in a meeting and says, do you know you did X, Y, Z? I'm kind of going, I'd kill you if you did that. So it takes work. It does take a lot of effort in the beginning, but ultimately.
And can I ask you, Barbara, did you find, your conversations with your clients, in other words, here's what we do, here's how we're going to help, but it ain't going to be me. How was that conversation?
So in the beginning, I had to get used to saying we versus I, which was a big shift. With my existing clients, it was kind of tricky to, because they were so used to me, and they used to call it Barbara's program, and I was going, it's not Barbara's program, it's an on your feet program. It's an on your feet program. But now when I'm talking to clients, because now I only work 4 days a week, just since January of this year. So officially I'm not working today. So this isn't work. This is pleasure.
On your holidays.
I'm on my holidays, nowhere to go. But anyway, so it became a thing of, I couldn't let any of my facilitators in front of a client unless I was 110% sure that they could do the job right.
Yeah.
So I could confidently say to the clients, this is this person or that person who delivered the training, and they're equally as good, if not better, than me. And now, obviously, with new clients, some of them don't. When I'm talking to them, the sales process, they don't even know that I do deliver some of the training, not nearly as much as I used to.
Yeah.
I probably only train one to 2 days a week max now.
Okay, great. So you just have a different conversation then. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a real help. Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks a million.
Welcome.
Fabulous. And many of us met Ian yesterday, and we know that Ian never does anything in ones. It'll be 2, maybe 3. So thank you for that, Ian. A couple of things, if I may comment on. Barbara, thank you for those great answers. Firstly, if I may, you got into flow, the two of you, straight away. The rest of us disappeared. So that just shows the power of this. No, that's really important. That shows you the power of this medium. Barbara, you got into flow. You were back there with your beach ball, and So there's magic in this new technology if we use it properly, if we allow ourselves to just go with the flow. That was just fabulous. The Vera Lynn came to mind, we'll meet again sometime. The two of you were...
If only I had my ukulele in the room, I could hurt your ears big time.
You said you were on the Camino, and myself and Edwina were giving the thumbs up that you were leveraging yourself by being on the Camino, and your business is still working. That's the significant difference between the self-employed individual and the business owner. But that doesn't happen by accident. You've got to build a brand. The brand goes beyond you. Then you've got to build the systems and train the people. And then you've got to be brave enough to let them off. And if they mess it up, you've got to take responsibility for the fact that they messed up on your behalf. And a lot of business owners, a lot of self-employed individuals are too afraid of that to actually ever let go. And I think that that's a mistake. Your business, if you want to scale it, you've got to be willing to let people fail, and you're going to take the rap for it. Barbara.
Yeah. Can I just make a point? And as well, it's like a few different things happened at the one time. I had won that award, asked the question, how are we going to grow the business? I had been working with Jeanette Nocton as a part of a leadership program. But, and now I've lost my train of thought. Sorry, you just said about letting go. No.
About not being afraid to let go. A lot of self-employed.
Yes, thank you. So the third thing, and by the way, that's just a going blank. People often that say, oh my God, what can I do if I go blank? Happens to me often. Just ask somebody, and hopefully somebody was listening, they can put you back on track. So thank you, Colm. But I had also met a lady called Joanne Hessian, and she had written a book called don't get a job, build a business. And it was a realization that when you read the sentence, if your business doesn't run when you're not there, it's not a business. It's a job. And that was a real key thing to me. If I wasn't there was no revenue being generated. Now, had I been savvy enough, I could have had online programs back then, but that's another day's work. But don't get a job, build a business. I think it's a really important point that you've just reiterated there, Colm.
Yeah, really well said. Really well said. Thank you. Anybody got a question for Barbara before we thank her for joining us today?
Can I just say hello to somebody I see on there?
Yeah, of course, Barbara, please.
No, I won't. It's okay. I won't say hello.
Okay. All right. Good stuff.
Okay.
Listen, Barbara Moynihan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to join me for coffee at 11 and to sit and be open and vulnerable in front of a group of people. The whole idea here, I think you can see it in action, is we're having a cup of coffee and chat, and there are other people, if you like, in the cafe sitting around earwigging and taking notes and learning from each other and being a support to each other. So really appreciate that, Barbara Moynihan.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Now, just before I let everybody go, to tell you what's happening, that Barbara concludes a great week with some great people who came on for coffee at 11. Next week, Monday, Anthony Cronin, a friend of mine who set up a business some years ago called FlexiWage. And it's an early start, high potential business. It's an app for your phone that allows you to manage your pay. I won't get into all the detail here, but it's a really exciting business. And of course, it was going swimmingly, no more than the rest, until COVID. So it'd be very interesting to hear what's happened with Anthony and the team on Monday. Tuesday, we've got a lady, a good friend of mine. She's a teacher, primary school teacher. She's also a model and a stylist, a personal stylist. That'll be a really interesting conversation. Wednesday, we've got a TV chef on, right? And Thursday, we have a food blogger, food designer and blogger coming on. So it's a really diverse mix of people next week. Not quite sure of Friday yet, but we'll figure that out as we go. Folks, it's been an absolute pleasure having you all here. Thank you very much for joining us. Barbara Moynihan in particular. Namaste.
Namaste. Thanks.